everyone. Welcome to Don't Ask an Agent, a special BC election edition. In
Special,
person.
in person, a BC election edition.
It is
I
a
guess
BC
that's what
election
we're
addiction.
addiction. Yeah,
I'm
Joseph,
addicted to the news media around the election.
that I believe that, Joseph. When you say that, I believe it. When other people say that, I don't know if it's the same. Um, just a preface of this, we thought it would be fun to look at all of the housing platforms that are coming up for all the parties that are running in BC, or at least the big three that are running. Who are the big three?
The big three are the BC Conservatives, because the BC Liberals / BC United no longer exist. So
Okay.
it's the BC Conservatives.
When did that happen?
You really are not paying attention
No,
to provincial
I
politics.
am not paying
There was a
attention.
whole scandal around this.
Okay.
It was wild.
In political terms?
Yeah.
It couldn't have been as wild as the bachelor party I was just at.
Maybe not. I don't know what kind of bachelor party that was. So the BC Conservative Party, led by John Rustad, the BC NDP Party, led by Mr. David Eby, and then the BC Greens, who have held some seats in provincial politics. Ironically, only the BC NDP and the BC Green have actually held any seats, because the BC Conservatives basically didn't exist up until this election.
Very recently, yeah.
So theoretically, if we were doing this like CBC debate style, we wouldn't even talk about the Conservatives, because technically they don't have a seat. But we all know that's not really the case. So the BC Greens, though, are led by Sonia Furstenau. So we have simply done this in the order in which they have appeared on Google when we have looked for housing platforms. So there is no bias in our order of discussing different housing platforms.
To double down on the fact that there is no bias, neither one of us has read any of the platforms
Nope.
leading into this. So this
Not
is
at all.
all pure gut reaction to whatever they're going to say.
And I mean, clearly Cameron really hasn't been paying attention to provincial politics. So
No, I really haven't.
he has had no spoilers. I've heard some of these in the media, but I have not taken an in-depth look at any of the things. And like Cameron said, we're just going to take a look at what's being put out there, and what are some of the reasons why we think that politicians are caring about this topic, and how we think it'll play in our lives.
I'm curious about the intent of the policy and and how it can be potentially misused. That is going to be fun, because there's always somebody who, hey, there's a new policy. Great. How can we break the system? How can we game the entire thing?
How can I make money? We will try to be as equitable as possible, and try to be fair.
Joseph will try to be as equitable as possible.
I will try to be fair. I will try not to let any of my biases show. We are not paid for this. We are not registered election anything. Nobody has given us money to talk about this topic.
Do you really think that the people out there listening to the two of us think we're paid by the Conservatives or somebody?
I mean, maybe.
Maybe.
I just don't want to get in trouble.
I look forward to the day that I get paid to rant my political opinions.
It's true. If you want to reach out, it's fine.
Then you know you've made it. So the opinions. Here's the review of two opinionated people on BC housing policies.
All right, so we're going to launch right into it with the BC Conservative platform, the first one that showed up on Google. Now, it wasn't actually the best laid out, I would say. It was kind of hard to find this. But
it was just on their website. You just
had
to
click
but
it's not called a platform or anything. It's just like a little press release. It just says like, effective immediately. Here's our press release. Posted on September 27th.
Okay, well that's important. It was done out on September 27th, so not too long ago.
Yeah,
that's the date.
We're not going to read through all of the politicking about why they think everyone else sucks, because they spend a lot of time talking about that. We're just going to get to their "here's how we'll fix housing" section.
Wow, fix housing.
Yes.
Okay.
It's broken.
All of it.
All of it.
Does that include my water heater?
I'm sure there's something in
There's something in there for my water
I'm
heater.
sure it's
okay.
there.
Let's see how they're going to fix my water heater.
All right. So we're trying not to be boring reading through a policy off of a website.
Good luck.
Cue some music in the background. Do, 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 do,
Okay,
do.
please stop that. For everybody's benefit, please stop that.
That was great.
Yeah, there's a reason we don't sing, Joseph.
So the first policy right off the top of their website is something that they are calling the Rustad rebate, which is a BC rent and mortgage rebate. It will remove BC income taxes from $3,000 per month of housing costs for both renters and homeowners. Um, Now, there are some very key caveats in this. It actually starts at only $1,500 per month in exempt monies in 2026. So, budget 2026, which, if my calculation is right, is April of 2025, because that's how the government does budgets.
Well, you spend more time working
I
with the
do.
government
It's
than I do.
April
So.
April 20.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. And it will increase by $500 per year until it reaches $3,000 per month of exempt tax savings, whatever that means. Cameron, I'm going to pop that over to you because you are much more financially savvy than I am.
Wow, that's a stunning indictment of our education system.
I have a master's degree, it's just not in finance.
No, I mean that I'm financially educated. No, so the way I read this is, so here's $1,500 a month. They're going to eliminate the provincial income tax on that 1,500. So it's about 18,000 a year. For anybody who's good at their 12 times tables.
Going up to 26,000.
Going up to
In
36,000.
Oh, see, this is why I'm financially savvy, not financially savvy.
Math. Yeah. So I just out of curiosity, but I mean, this is the part, and I'll be honest, I'm not super familiar with provincial tax brackets there. So I imagine if you're paying, for argument's sake, 3,000 a month in rent, you're at a higher tax bracket because that's expensive. And without getting into the details of, multiple
Exactly
people,
how
who's
much.
claiming how much, but let's
Yeah.
just, for argument's say that that's 20% off. And again, please feel free to comment and correct my math accordingly. But let's just say that's 20% of 3,000. So that's going to be $600 a month that you don't pay taxes on. So that essentially helps that genuinely, I think, from a rental or a mortgage perspective, that does assist in making the cost, reducing the cost, or it allows you to actually claim that back on your income taxes
Right.
in the following fiscal year. So overall, very interesting policy, and I think well
But,
intentioned.
but my question for you, Cameron, is you want to know what the intent is. So I kind of look at this and I go, oh, this is a fun number that we can say. We're going to save you $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month in your pocket.
No, hold on.
But that's how it reads.
This is great.
Remember, I calculated.
I know, yeah. On the this
Incorrectly
is great. So that sounds great, and I think what I've said might be a little too generous. This is right on their website, the Conservative Party website. The rebate will be equivalent to BC's base tax bracket of 5.06% multiplied by eligible housing costs. So what they're talking about is a 5% discount, and not even yeah, because it's the tax bracket. So it's 3,000 times 5%. So that's about $150 a month
In tax savings.
in tax savings. So that works out to be about $1,800 a year.
So you see how I'm cynical about this,
Yeah,
because it sounds like I'm going to be benefiting by a lot more than I'm going to be benefiting for. I I see where they're coming at in terms of like housing costs are expensive and tax rebates are one of the very few direct ways that governments have of addressing that. Like very specific, like direct action, right? Like
Yeah.
it's much easier to point at a tax rebate and say, "Look, I did that," than to change a policy that changes the way that developers in the real estate industry work. It's much easier to just say, like, "Look, money, here you go." Like that's straightforward.
I'm going to be honest though that if you're paying 3,000 a month in rent, which I guess if you're in downtown Vancouver, that's about a 1 bedroom right now. So I
That's a
mean,
closet.
yes, it's not much, but 5% off does not sound. I mean, it's better than nothing, and I suppose taken in conjunction with other policies, but I feel like this is a it looks better than it really is kind of thing. So wait. Were we
Well, I
voting? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
oh, I'm kind of thumb. Like, I didn't know we were voting, but I'm
I
kind of
don't
like
know.
thumbs neutral on this.
I
Okay.
this is honestly, this seems to me like a bit of a the misuse of this policy is for landlords to be like, that's cool, we could just jack rents up by another 5%. Like
Well, I'm curious.
I
I'm
it
curious if it talks anything about tenant protection or what that will look like in their housing platform because
well, I imagine tenant protections. I mean, we haven't got there.
we
Maybe
haven't
there is
got it.
something,
Maybe there is
but
something. I'm
maybe
very
there is
curious.
something. But
I
let's just say the tenant protections stay in place. It's not existing tenants. Existing tenants will get some nominal benefit, but it's the
right.
new tenants who will do, well,
That'll
we'll
just
just
jack
jack
it
rents
up by
by
5%.
5%. So
Well, talking about other policies that they're presenting here, the next one is around the speed at which things get done in building new housing. Now, I think this is a pretty hot button topic.
this is tight. This is
I think
woo,
this is
woo.
definitely something that,
Let's get rid of all regulations and build shacks. Shacks for everybody.
and I thought I was going to be
That's
the more biased one.
no, I didn't. I said I would be very biased. I am happy to
I am
put
being
my.
very equitable. I am not letting any sarcasm come into my voice
I am going to be
at
very
all.
sarcastic with all of them. No
Uh,
holds barred.
so the way that they sort of see increasing the housing speed, I guess, lack of a better word, development speed, they have three points here. So one, approve homes in months, not years. So they want to get rid of rezoning and development permits. Well, not get rid of, but basically just say like if it's clearly yes or no, they want it to be done in a required timeline, and the provincial government is going to be the ones issuing the permits.
Oh,
Uh-huh. That's a.
oh,
I know
that's
that'll be interesting.
that's wow.
I'm
Okay,
just I'm gonna talk meta about this just a little bit.
no, we'll go to the next one. We'll come
But
back to
no,
it.
I want to talk
That
meta about
this is
this.
okay. Fine,
I
go
want to
for
talk
it.
meta about this. Conservative governments are traditionally known for small government getting rid of regulation and government bureaucracy. So the fact that they want to bring the permitting within the provincial government to me is a bit ironic. I'm
Okay, that's fair.
I'm just
It's
pointing
fair.
that out, like because I know just from hearing anecdotally that they're not really big fans of regulating other things. So this is kind of like
Uh,
curious to me that they do want to take on the regulation of provincial permitting, which is interesting. They
It's
want to
okay. Wait,
require,
hold on.
well,
On that point, the other thing is I looked at it, I go, is that over like zoning is a municipal issue. It's
yes,
always been a municipal
yes,
issue.
but does it
And
have to be?
well, it doesn't have to be, but well, but there's a rationale for why it's a municipal issue. And to have the provincial government overstep, are they overstepping their bounds as a as the
I
province?
feel like we're going to get to this because
Okay.
spoilers. I didn't read the platform, but I did see one of the topics that's going to be further down. Like I saw the headline topic,
Did
and
you research
I
ahead of
did
me?
not research ahead
Oh,
of you. I
oh,
just I pulled the documents up so that we had
okay.
some prep work done.
Fair
So we
enough.
look like professionals here. Uh, I'm trying, and I'm. This feels like almost exactly the opposite of what they're saying in one of the other ones. So
Okay.
we'll
Well,
get to it,
but
but
that's fascinating to me because I'm that's a major thing because if hey, we're just going to approve permits, are they also going to then like subsidize infrastructure like
who
sewer,
knows? Good
electricity,
question.
hospitals, police,
Well,
fire?
maybe let's see this in the next point.
Okay.
So, the next point in this getting things done quicker section is requiring zoning to be proactive. So, working with cities to ensure zoning is changed at the same time as other land use policies. Sometimes they call pre zoning. Um, so, apparently, official community plans and area plans specify what types of buildings are encouraged, um, but that still requires unique rezoning for each building. They sound like they don't want to do that. That adds delay. They don't want to do that. Third point is they want to trust BC professionals to do their jobs. So they say there's a lot of wasted time having bureaucracies second guess the work of highly skilled, regulated, and certified technical professions like engineers and architects. They're going to enact presumption of compliance laws so municipal and provincial regulators must presume that BC professionals can perform and peer review their work in accordance with their rules. Now,
Wow.
I they've only mentioned three professionals in here, right? They've only mentioned architects. Actually, they've only mentioned two, architects and
Engineers,
engineers.
yeah.
I'm
That makes sense to me.
curious because they don't say what professionals aren't covered in here. I'm
Oh, okay, but
curious.
this is like
Would realtors be a professional under
there.
the
So
housing platform?
so
Would they
right
be
now, I can
considered?
say that realtors are regulated by the provincial government, the BCFSA. They're not a self-regulated profession. But I mean, there are like lawyers are an example. They file documentation with city and they're
Right.
involved in the pro. I mean, the majority of these professions, and to be fair, in a rezoning practice, it is uncommon, let's say, for a realtor to be involved in the actual rezoning versus like the builder, developer, the architect, the engineer, the legal teams to
So
make
uncommon
the
in the actual
yeah.
practice, but uncommon in the hidden behind the scenes. Who's paying
No.
whom and what developer is getting pockets lined to get things
Well, I mean,
redeveloped
okay,
a
if we're going
particular
to talk
way?
about like conspiratorial behavior, anybody
I
can
want to
be
talk
in.
about
Okay, but I mean,
conspiratorial
anybody can be
behavior.
involved in conspiratorial behavior. That's not profession dependent. It could be Guido from down the block. It doesn't
Why
have
are
to.
we bringing Guido into this? That's
I,
not nice to Guido. He's
I,
a very nice man.
well,
Don't listen to
I'm
Cameron on
sure
this.
Guido's very nice, but I mean, it's not, conspiratorial practice is not profession dependent. But this is really interesting though, because this is like it's fascinating to me because there's a there's an interesting change that I'm not 100% on. This was sort of professional talk, but there was a building that I saw being built, and I was talking with somebody I know who's an architect, and they were saying that there's only one fire escape, like one fire exit in the building,
Yes,
only on one side.
this is a recent change
Yeah,
to
to the
the
BC
legislation.
building,
Yeah,
yeah, to the
the
BC
building
building code.
code, you can have I think it's a wood frame building up to a certain number of stories. I don't know if it's
I think it's
six. I
six.
think it's six. Yeah,
Yeah,
where it only requires one.
which I get, but I look at so I mean,
Which then the professions could just say, okay, well, it's only one, so we'll do one. But a lot of the municipal governments are actually really pissed at this and
right.
think that this is a like fire chiefs do not like this. What one simple trick to piss off all fire chiefs in your lower mainland area, in your regional area,
Remove the requirement.
remove
Yeah.
requirements for multiple fire exits, which I don't blame them.
I mean, I get where they're coming from, but what that's really interesting is that returns, in principle, buildable square footage
Yes.
to be sold, and in theory, that should increase the unit count in a building. Which, again, so I mean, I'm looking at this like trusting professionals to do their job. Cities do provide a level of oversight because I've seen bits and I've participated in some like charitable projects around this and volunteer projects around this where it's like, no, we really do need to hit these building
Yeah.
codes and things like that. And some of it is not poorly intentioned. Some of it is just people going, well, this is a really efficient way, and we'll see what the city says. So there's an interesting dynamic that's about to get really disrupted there by that.
Well, okay. So how do we feel? Well, okay, I think we all can agree that the intention of this is to cut down on the bureaucracy, except for adding a layer of
Adding a level of
bureaucracy in terms
bureaucracy,
of
yeah.
provincial permitting, which interesting, but okay. I think we can agree that's the intention, and they're taking this principle that hey, housing is a supply issue, and if we fix the supply issue, then that's going to solve a lot of our problems. Which okay, overall, when I read this policy, I'm not opposed to any of this. I like the idea of approving things quicker. I like the idea of zoning being proactive. The one that I'm the most sort of like, so I'll give like a thumbs up for the first two, if you know what I mean. Like I'll be
Yeah.
like, hey, thumbs up, thumbs up. Where it comes to the one that I'm a little bit skeptical of, it's that trusting BC professionals to do their job, because I am in a professionally regulated role. Um, my my college doesn't know shit about what I do. They really, really don't.
Are we gonna get nailed for
We
you
can we
using dirty
can we
language
can
on
we
YouTube?
can bleep it in. Just, I said shift. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what Cameron's talking about. Um, they really don't know. And it really comes down to, like, I know that the College of Engineers, and I don't know anything about the College of Architects. I don't even know if they have a college. I don't know how they're
I know
regulated.
very
I
little
think
about it.
maybe it's like a Royal Society of, because I
I
remember
don't
it's, it might actually be a
Is a
society.
Royal Society a
It
thing?
might be. We should
Well,
Google it later.
we'll do that.
Uh, we'll do some work. We'll learn things. I presume that they do have high standards and high qualities. I just I get very nervous about there being um, that second step oversight. I do think two-factor authentication in something as important as, like, hey, my building won't fall down and kill everyone. It's good to have, because you saw what happened here in Surrey. There was an engineer who was regulated by the College of Engineers, and for lack of a better word, just chose not to. And he was sanctioned by the college afterwards. But the only reason that was all found out was because the city came in and went, like, wait a
Yeah.
second.
Well,
This building is not up to code, and this is a major problem. Because the college doesn't have this sort of like outreach and enforcement arm where
yeah.
they're like checking people's work. Like, people
No,
can be
they wait for
lazy.
complaints.
Yeah, they wait for
The
complaints
the other
or
part,
people to die.
this is like the problem of bad actors in the system. So it's like if if we if one bad apple spoils the whole bunch kind of thing. And so when I think about that notion of, okay, if I'm being paid by one party to produce a specific report, well, they're paying me to produce the verification research that has their bias. So I, I I don't know if I like that fully trusting professionals part. Not because I think professionals aren't trustworthy. The majority of them are, but there's always, I mean, in every profession across the board, there's always a couple of bad apples. That's why we have regulation. That's why, and
Yeah.
presumably,
Yeah.
these
So
colleges exist.
I
So,
have thumbs down
yeah,
to the third point.
yeah.
I'm not fully confident in
I
that.
I am not a big fan. I mean, I get the like the approve homes in months, not years. I get the pressure for that, um, but I feel like the provincial government approving things, like my impression of reading off their website is like, if the city doesn't say yes fast enough, we will. I'm going, I don't know if I like I don't know if I like that because I'd like municipal issues to
To be
be
handled
handled
municipally.
in
Yeah.
municipally.
It does shake up
That
the balance of
yeah,
power, municipal, provincial, federal, like, politics here.
yeah,
If you're not from Canada, well, one, thank you for joining us. Two, you probably have no idea what this structure of our government is. In fact, if you live in Canada, you might not know either, because
suck up.
it's complicated. But there are driving pressures between city politics, municipal politics, provincial politics, federal politics. They all interplay here.
You pander so well.
Thank you.
All right,
It's really trying
let's
to get
keep
that
going.
political appointment, right? The next point is they just call it Get BC Building. They put a lot of things on here, so I guess this is just where they decided they didn't have a catchy name to
I
put
guess.
everything. So I'm going to go through them really quickly, so that we don't spend all of our time on the BC Conservatives. Um, Basically, they want to get rid of the step code. I have no idea what the step code is. Apparently, it increases construction costs by 30 to 40%, and results in cookie cutter homes with few windows and diminished quality of life for residents. I don't even know what this is, and they don't reference it. So I would like to know more. Um,
Yeah, that's one I'm gonna have to look up.
it
Turn my brain.
sounds like the radical net zero mandate. Oh, okay. I'm going to theorize that this has something to do with climate change
Oh, okay.
and policies around building climate friendly housing.
Mhm.
I'm going to theorize that. I don't know
Oh,
though because they don't actually say it in here. Maybe for a reason. Sorry, I promised I wasn't going to be sarcastic. I was going to be equitable.
whatever happened to being equitable? Look at
I
this.
tried. I tried. I made it. What? Half an hour in?
Oh,
Not even 20 minutes in. I made it 20
okay,
minutes
keep
in.
going, keep going.
Support transit oriented communities. So complete communities near transit, not just dormitories. That's a very politically laden word, but I get what you're saying. They don't want just
High
high
rise.
def, high density
Yeah.
building in transit spaces. They say provide space for grocery stores and small businesses within walking distance of home. End over regulation.
And over, well, on that support transit oriented communities, this is very interesting to me because there was, again, it was one of the local business improvement areas in Surrey. And one of the things I'd heard in a meeting with them was TransLink requires within 800 meters of a SkyTrain station,
Hmm.
they require 10,000 units, like individual units, to break even in a 20-year time frame on the production of that transit station.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never heard that. I mean, it would make sense. I don't know where they get the 800 meters from.
Oh, it's just that's the sort of the range where people will walk to transit is what I'm guessing.
Okay, I can see you. Like, I can see that.
So I mean that's very interesting. So transit oriented communities, I
Are you going to
wonder
get
how that
10,000 if you're not doing high density?
right.
Probably not. But
I wonder how that plays
yeah.
out with uh, with translinks.
Um, End over regulation. Again, they're talking about reviews, design reviews, forcing builders to give away brand new homes. that's a that's a that's a political statement if I've heard one. Heavy taxes on new housing, kill projects, often only with expensive ones that can survive. Amend the Local Government Act to prevent home killing red tape. So this is actually another example of what we talked about above in terms of overriding municipal policy, because
Mm-hmm.
those are municipal policies that are laid out. This local government act is how we sort of allow our municipal policies to
Yeah.
occur. Uphold the rule of law and defend property rights. BC Development Tribunal to hold regulators and politicians accountable to the rule of law and fair
It
process.
just
I don't
it
understand what
sounds really vague to me.
that sounds ominous.
I mean, appointing any tribunal sounds ominous, but I mean, that is literally a three-line item, and it's really vague. I'm not entirely sure what that entails.
Reform development cost charges. So they want to do that on completion as opposed to front loaded costs. Actually, you know what? That makes sense.
That's
That
not
makes a
bad.
lot of
Yeah.
sense. Like, I don't give developers a lot of credit, but I do give them credit for the fact that things are expensive, man. And like, if you can push that cost to the end, then maybe it gets some projects across the finish line that would have
It changes
struggled.
the time when they pay those charges. Just to be clear, it's to reform them to allowing those development cost charges to be paid on completion instead of upfront. Um, that actually saves them a lot of interest because if they're financing those costs,
Mm-hmm.
then it saves them interest on that,
Which could that
which
I
could
mean could theoretically, in a trickle down economic model, pass those savings along to the end user, hence consumer, hence buyer of the property. Do
so
I
that
think that will ever happen? No, I
I,
don't.
I will make a case here as a counterpoint. I mean, I get where you're saying that trickle down economics by and large is a bit of a failure. Um, what
Shocked.
that sounds that's
Shocked.
your
It is?
I'm just articulating your
Sorry.
bias for everybody, Joseph. But there is a scenario where this actually does work out because in slower markets, developers are forced to offer more incentives, and some of those incentives are reduced pricing on property.
Okay.
And this
That is fair.
does give them a
And they
range
give
to
them room.
reduce a little
It
bit
gives them a
more
little bit of room.
in a
Yeah.
slower market where their units aren't flying off the shelf. But I mean, it doesn't necessarily address things about the speed of the market and the demand relative to inventory.
Um, Next point, make taxes fair for homeowners. Working with BC assessment to make sure that current homeowners don't get hit with higher tax bills based on future potential. I don't know enough about how, because BC assessment it drives property tax changes, but it's not the whole story because again those are municipal
Hmm.
targets that get set, right? Like the city of Surrey, the city of Vancouver, the city of Coquitlam, they make decisions about what provincial or what property tax rates are going to be.
Yeah.
Those are municipal property taxes. Um, I get like BC assessment don't get, but I don't really see how BC assessment is going to make. I
I think this may be in response to that policy where if you're in particular cities and you have whatever it is, 5 or 6,000 square feet lots or above, you can build. You're automatically been rezoned to build 3 to 6 units or whatever that policy change was.
right.
And I think this is saying, well, in principle, if you're suddenly able to put 6 units on
Oh,
your,
then you're going to get
then you're
taxed
going to get
based on the
taxed
idea
on
that you
on that
could put
rezoning.
six. Okay, yeah, I
So
can.
I mean, if
Okay,
that's
the
the
intention
intent,
is there.
if
Okay,
that's
yeah,
the intent, I
that's
get
fair.
that.
That's fair. I love this last point here. Build new towns. That build new towns.
They should retitle this "Bring Back Spuzzin."
It just says BC is blessed with an abundance of land, but the NDP refuses to use it to end the housing shortage. We will identify land outside of the ALR, so that's the Agricultural Land Reserve, that has potential to support beautiful new communities. Who's paying for these beautiful new communities and where are they?
Well, they're paid for by tax breaks.
I like that. I love it. Can I be put in charge of building a new town? I like low key would love to do that.
Are you just
So
trying?
Rustad, you reach out.
Are
You
you
let me
just
know.
trying to become a dictator in your own small community? There's a really good intent behind that, though, which is there is a lot of land, and
Yes.
I know that we have challenges, sort of geologically, I guess, with mountain ranges and things like that. But there is a lot of land out there to be utilized. So there's not necessarily a bad maneuver or bad plan if we want to create that. We have a lot of frontier space that can be utilized throughout Canada. Let's be real.
Right. But that also comes up against federal, crown, indigenous relations. There's a lot of factors that go into just building a new town. Infrastructure. What's there? What industry or
Yes.
economy is going to support it? And newsflash, they want more mining in BC. So I could actually see that being sort of their side, like let's build mining towns again. Which, hey, like consistent within the platform. Whether I think it's a good idea or not is kind of irrelevant to the fact that it does kind of dovetail nicely.
Yeah.
Um, so as a by and large, I think we kind of walked through those as we were going. Like they're kind of just like
Let's jump on to the next one.
and the next one is really interesting. Working with cities. So um, the conservatives believe that local governments are vital partners in getting BC building, not obstacles to be overcome, except if they don't issue permits fast enough and you don't like the way they're issuing permits.
Then it's all
and
bets are off.
then,
Yeah.
and then we can do whatever we want. So the principles here in their platform are to equip municipalities with flexibility and support to make sure new housing growth occurs in the way that works best for them. Again, except in the case of if permitting isn't what we want. So they want to repeal Bill 44, which I am going to assume was the bill signed for high density,
Uh,
requiring zoning to be. We should look up Bill 44.
we
They
should
don't put it here. I mean, that'd be nice. Come on, BC conservatives, put Bill
references,
44,
references, and
reference it
links.
so I know what it is. Um, I assume that's the one that all the municipalities are
I'm
up in
not.
arms with right now.
I honestly am not sure. It might be. It makes sense, but I don't fully know. So we'll carry on.
Yeah, create the Civic Infrastructure Renewal Fund, a $1 billion per year fund that will be available to municipalities who are taking action to get homes built. The fund will be available to municipalities whose zoning allows for viable small scale multi unit housing or at least on at least 2/3 of the residential land.
I like that. Nobody's talking about infrastructure yet, but what support? I'm in support of building better infrastructure, transit and otherwise.
I like the idea of funding infrastructure, but the fact that they're limiting it to viable small scale multi unit housing is the catch here. To me, that speaks very much like we will
Well,
invest in
to
small
cities. No,
communities.
to municipalities whose zoning allows
Yeah,
for
so the
this.
new spasm, the
Yeah.
new towns that they're going to build, that aren't going to have high density living. We're going to fund the infrastructure for those new towns out of our civic infrastructure renewal fund.
Well, that's consistent with the other things they're saying.
Yeah, but then that doesn't really benefit me if I live in a city.
Well, I mean, it could also be it's where it's 2/3 of residential land are applicable. I think that applies to Vancouver and Surrey.
Okay, we'll
I mean,
see.
it's just
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
trying to increase density. That's
the,
all.
the last one, stop ramming through low barrier facilities. So these are facilities for housing for individuals who are struggling, have multiple complex needs. Um, the conservatives don't really want you to have to build those if you don't want them.
Hmm.
It's personally, I understand. To be fair, I actually completely understand where people come from on their concerns around these kinds of low barrier facilities. Like, I get it. I'm a social worker. I get it. I get the concerns that people have in their neighborhood. My fear is that if you, as a province, don't like say like enough's enough, somebody has to build it, then nothing will get built because everybody will just say not in my backyard, and then we
Yeah.
won't be able to invest in these facilities anywhere because everyone's just going to put up red tape and say no, it's just not going to get built. And
I see where you're coming from.
if you're offering like an alternative, like I'd be okay with this if they offered an alternative, like if they tied this to the new towns, if they said, "Hey, we're going to build new towns and invest in infrastructure here, and we're going to require a percentage of low barrier housing or supportive housing,"
So
then I would be like,
to me, though, this is a play to put in or to bias towards higher value property. Like this is counterintuitive to that we're going to try and make housing more affordable or create through creation of supply. It's a bit
because
of
this
a
is the most affordable housing you could
yeah,
have. This
right.
is literally the most
Yes,
affordable housing you
but
could have.
this is antithetical. Hey, keep going. We got to get. There's
I
two
know
others we got to get through too. I mean, we got to get to the NDP and the Greens. I
um,
want to rant at them.
okay. So this doesn't look like a hit piece because it's not. Because again, we are not paid for this. A few other big things that they've got just popping out. We'll just go through them really quickly. They would like to introduce tax incentives for rental constructions, working with the federal government to reintroduce a MERB tax incentive program. And if Ottawa doesn't play ball, introduce a made in BC version. Um, okay,
Okay,
sure. I like the idea of like
tax.
incentivizing rental construction. That's a
There are already some tax incentives for rental construction. Yeah, I know a couple of realtors who tried to work with some developers on doing that. The projects didn't go through.
I mean, this is so for the renters out there. This is the only item on the platform that actually refers to rentals directly.
No, the Rustad rebate
Sorry, the Rustad
also.
rebate. Rustad rebate.
Yeah.
Don't forget the Rustad rebate. That $150,
Well,
whatever.
once it's up to 3 grand, but it starts out as less than that.
So $50.
I don't know, whatever it is.
Some
Yeah.
small amount. This is the only other thing that's speaking to you as a renter.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
Accountability in nonprofits. So they want to do a forensic audit into BC housing. That's a whole other. That's a whole thing. We're just gonna leave it at like,
Uh,
yes, there were some scandals around BC housing. They were pretty real scandals. Um, yeah, we're gonna leave it at that because that could be a whole podcast in itself. In fact, I'm pretty sure there is a whole podcast about that.
somebody somewhere.
Somebody has done it.
Provide professional training to nonprofits building housing. That's interesting because I think there is a space for nonprofits or for a nonprofit to become a developer or to create a nonprofit development. That's actually kind of interesting. That opens up some really fascinating places to
I'm
go.
just curious how much they're budgeting for that. There's a
It's
lot of
it's
nonprofits.
unclear.
The last point on their housing platform is controlling strata insurance costs. So they stated that insurance costs have gone up. That is true. And they'd like to put all options on the table to get costs under control. So
And this is
I'm not really put the building code to work. If the building code can help reduce insurance premiums by mandating better materials or installation techniques, we'll act on these kind. They're not really. They're saying it's an issue, but they're not really giving any. And I mean, this is not editorializing. I don't really see an actual platform
I mean,
like
it's an idea,
it's an
right?
idea.
This is an
It's like,
idea.
hey
Yeah.
guys, we get it. You know, insurance costs are bad. We're gonna fix it. But this, I, I don't see how the building code is going to change any existing housing insurance costs because it
No.
won't. And then uh, making sure the risks are based on risk to property in BC, not the United States. Insurance corporations are multinational global industries. They don't care.
I don't know. I mean, I get there's some notion there that
Ooh,
premiums can be
ooh,
raised.
oh! I missed the kicker though.
Where
Oh my gosh, the last line. To ensure a fair and competitive market, a publicly owned option will be studied. Now, that is very ironic, given that they want to get rid of ICBC, which is the publicly owned insurance option for auto insurance. That's bad. But strata insurance.
it says if necessary to ensure.
I'm just
I
I'm
don't know
just
that they're going to
pointing
find
it
out that it's
I'm just
necessary.
pointing it.
I know it's
You're
in
right.
there.
They're not
It
going to
says
find it's
if
necessary, but it's in
necessary
there.
to ensure a fair and competitive market, a publicly owned option will be studied. That sounds like a really hedged statement to me. Anyway, overall, hot takes on the conservative platform.